Welcome, art lovers. Today we're diving into the world of contemporary watercolor and gouache, exploring the artists who are shaping how we see, feel, and understand this timeless medium. Every name you've requested is included in this list, from emerging talents to established masters, each bringing their unique voice and vision to the global art scene. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and join me as we embark on this journey together. And before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps support the channel. Dean Mitchell. Dean Mitchell is an American painter known for work that feels quiet and true. He was born in 1957 and over many years has become one of the country's most respected watercolor and oil painters. Mitchell paints people, places, and small moments from everyday life. You'll often see portraits of friends and neighbors, worn houses, old barns, and empty streets that still seem full of memory. He paints with careful drawing and soft, luminous washes that make light and feeling. Across his career, he has won many prizes and awards from major art societies. Museums and collectors in the United States hold his work, and he has been honored by groups like the American Watercolor Society and the Salmagundi Club. Those awards came because his paintings combine strong skill with honest emotion. When you look at a Dean Mitchell painting, listen for history and for the small human details. An old hat, a folding chair, the way light falls across a face. He does not shout, he invites you in. His art asks you to stay and remember. That quiet power, skillful technique, patient seeing, and gentle storytelling is what makes Dean Mitchell's work feel both personal and universal. If you stop and look, his paintings will reward you every time. Patricia Guzman. Patricia Guzman is a Mexican watercolor artist who brings the rich visual language of her culture into the present day. Her paintings are filled with color, rhythm, and symbolism, drawing from Mexico's deep traditions while speaking in a distinctly contemporary voice. She often uses folkloric patterns, textiles, and cultural motifs as a foundation, but instead of keeping them fixed in the past, Patricia reinterprets them through modern composition. This balance between tradition and innovation makes her work both rooted and forward-looking. Viewers immediately recognize the cultural pride in her paintings, yet they also feel the freshness of her perspective. For Patricia, watercolor is more than just a medium. Its fluidity mirrors the living nature of culture itself, constantly shifting, adapting, and expanding. The pigments spread and blend like stories being retold across generations, carrying traces of the past into the present moment. Beyond technique, Patricia's art is about identity and belonging. She paints not only to preserve memory, but to assert the vitality of Mexican culture on the global stage. Through her work, she has become an important voice in Latin American art circuits, showing that watercolor can be both deeply personal and culturally expansive. Núria Riera is a Spanish watercolor artist known for creating interiors and figure scenes that feel calm, quiet, and deeply contemplative. Her paintings are never rushed, instead they breathe. They allow soft light to spill gently across walls, tables, or faces, giving ordinary spaces an atmosphere of intimacy and stillness. What sets Riera apart is her sense of restraint. She doesn't overload her compositions with unnecessary detail. Instead, she carefully chooses what to reveal and what to leave out. This balance gives her work a warmth and elegance that viewers connect with instantly. Her figure scenes often carry a reflective tone, as if the people in them are lost in thought. In her interiors, silence itself becomes part of the composition. Every stroke is deliberate, every wash of color designed to enhance the sense of peace. Riera's work has been shown not only in Spain, but also across Europe and in international watercolor society exhibitions. Wherever it's displayed, it's praised for its ability to transform simplicity into something meaningful. Ted Nuttall. Ted Nuttall paints with a quiet confidence. Based in New Mexico, he is best known for portraits and figure work done in transparent watercolor. His paintings look simple at first, then you notice the careful drawing, the soft washes, and the way light shapes every face and gesture. He starts with strong draftsmanship. The drawing gives the figure its structure. Then he builds color in thin, transparent layers. These washes let light pass through the paint, so skin, cloth, and shadow feel alive. Nuttall watches how light falls across a cheek, a shoulder, or a folded hand. He uses that light to create mood, not loud or flashy, but honest and deep. His work balances classical skill with a modern sensitivity. You can see old-school drawing and study, but the paintings breathe like real life. He chooses moments that feel personal, a quiet portrait, a figure in thought, a simple pose that tells a story. The atmosphere, the air around the subject, is as important as the subject itself. Collectors and juried shows often notice his work because it looks polished and true. He has become a benchmark for artists who work in watercolor and other water-based media. For students and fellow painters, his approach is a lesson in restraint. Draw well, control value, layer transparently, and always respect the light. When you look at a Ted Nuttall painting, give it time. Let your eyes follow the brushwork, the soft edges, and the small details that hold a life. His paintings do not shout, they invite you to stay, to feel the calm presence of a person seen with patience and skill. Ron Stocke. Ron Stocke paints quiet, glowing scenes that feel like a memory. He often chooses city streets, small still lifes, and calm marine views, places we all know but see again through his light. His watercolors look luminous, as if the light comes from inside the paper. He paints with simple shapes and strong values. That means he blocks in big darks and lights first, then builds the picture so everything reads clearly. His brushwork can be loose and lively, but the values, the lights and darks, keep the painting honest. This is why his work feels both relaxed and finished at the same time. When you look at a Ron Stocke painting, notice how he uses soft edges and a few sharp details to guide your eye. A shadow here, a bright highlight there, and your attention moves through the scene. The colors are often gentle and warm, giving a feeling of calm and a little nostalgia, like a memory of a place you once visited. Stocke also teaches and leads workshops, sharing how to simplify shapes, control values, and let watercolor do its magic. For students, his work is a lesson in balancing control with freedom. Draw what matters, simplify what doesn't, and trust the paint.
Alf Löhr. Alf Löhr works with watercolor in a quiet, thoughtful way. He does not paint objects to tell a story. Instead, he builds wide, calm areas of color that feel like a place to breathe. He begins with very thin washes. One layer after another slowly changes the paper. The colors are soft and see-through, so they float and mix in the light. This makes each painting feel deep, even when it looks simple. Löhr uses repeated washes, small marks, and sometimes gentle drips. Those small movements on the paper create texture and rhythm. You will not find busy detail. You will find space, room to look and to rest. The shapes he makes are often minimal color fields. They do not try to copy the world exactly. Instead, they point to a feeling, calm, stillness, or quiet wonder. Because the paint is transparent, light seems to move through the layers. The surface can look like a soft window or a wide, empty room you can step into. When you stand with one of his paintings, don't hunt for a subject. Let your eyes follow the color and the space. Notice where two washes meet, how one tone fades into another, and how tiny marks break the calm in a gentle way. Those small choices give the work its life. Löhr's work asks you to slow down. It asks for a moment of silence. If you give it that time, the painting will open, not with a story, but with a feeling. Zhang. Zhang paints with two ways of seeing at once, the gestures of Eastern brushwork and the clear structure of Western figure painting. He often works large, using watercolor to catch quick, honest moments in people's lives. When you look at his paintings, you notice the calligraphic strokes, fast, confident marks that come from traditional Eastern ink and brush. Those marks meet solid drawing and careful composition. The result feels both free and grounded. The brush moves with energy, but the picture stays strong and readable. Zhang likes to paint people in the moment, a man brushing his hair, a child lost in thought, a street scene where light hits faces just so. His watercolors hold a small surprise. They look loose up close, but from a distance they resolve into clear figures and emotion. That balance, gesture plus form, is what gives his work its quiet power. He also uses light and color to tell mood. Soft washes suggest air and space, while warmer tones bring a feeling of connection. Even when the scene is simple, the painting feels alive because of the way he lets the brush and the paper do their work together. Zhang builds a bridge between two painting traditions. He invites us to slow down and notice the small gestures that make a life. Watch the brush strokes, feel the light, and let the painting hold a moment for you. Larisa Sterkhova is an artist whose career bridges both Russia and the United Kingdom, and that dual perspective comes through in her work. She moves freely between figurative painting and abstraction, refusing to be confined to just one language of expression. In her figurative works, Sterkhova captures the human form with luminous washes of watercolor, using light and transparency to suggest both presence and vulnerability. These pieces often feel intimate, almost like fleeting encounters caught in time. But her practice doesn't stop there. She also embraces abstraction, experimenting with bold washes, layered textures, and shifting color fields. In these works, the paint itself becomes the subject, fluid, unpredictable, and alive. What ties her different approaches together is a distinctly European sensibility, one that values both storytelling and formal experimentation. Whether she's painting a figure or a pure abstraction, she's always searching for balance between emotion and structure. Sterkhova exhibits her work in transnational venues, engaging audiences across borders. Her versatility is her strength, and it allows her to speak to a wide range of viewers, each finding something personal in her watercolors. Mary Jansen. Mary Jansen is an American watercolorist whose work captures the natural world with breathtaking precision. She is best known for her detailed portraits of wildlife, particularly birds, painted with such realism that viewers often feel they could reach out and touch a feather. What makes Jansen stand out is her ability to merge technical brilliance with emotional sensitivity. Every stroke of her brush is deliberate, yet filled with affection for her subjects. When she paints an owl, a hawk, or a songbird, she doesn't just record its physical features, she communicates its spirit. You can see the alertness in the eyes, the softness of plumage, and even the stillness of the environment it inhabits. Jansen's work has found an audience in both fine art and wildlife art circles, where her pieces are celebrated not only for their accuracy, but also for their warmth. Many collectors describe her paintings as more than just artworks. They feel like encounters with nature itself. In today's contemporary art world, where experimentation often dominates, Mary Jansen reminds us of the timeless appeal of observation and care. Her paintings celebrate the fragile beauty of the natural world and invite us to slow down and look closer at the living creatures around us. That balance of realism, tenderness, and respect for nature is what keeps her watercolor practice deeply relevant in 2025. Dobra Kamburova. Dobra Kamburova is a Bulgarian watercolorist whose work carries a lyrical, almost poetic atmosphere. She often paints still lifes and everyday scenes, but what sets her apart is the quiet sensitivity she brings to them. Rather than dramatic subjects, she focuses on ordinary moments, a vase of flowers, a table setting, or a fleeting light on fabric, and transforms them into meditations on color and form. Her brushwork feels delicate but at the same time purposeful, creating paintings that invite viewers to pause and reflect. Beyond her own studio practice, Kamburova is also dedicated to teaching, mentoring young artists, and keeping watercolor alive within Eastern Europe's art circles. Through both her exhibitions and her educational role, she has carved out a respected place on today's contemporary watercolor map. Marcos Beccari. Marcos Beccari is a Brazilian watercolor artist who brings careful skill and bright color together. He paints both landscapes and people. His work feels alive because he balances loose, flowing washes with a strong sense of form and light. Beccari begins with confident drawing. That drawing gives his shapes weight. A house, a tree, or a figure will read clearly on the paper. Then he lays down thin, fluid washes. Those transparent layers build color slowly. The colors stay fresh and luminous, but the forms remain solid. Look for the way he controls light. Soft highlights and thoughtful shadows make the scene feel real. Even when the brushwork is free, the light and structure keep the picture from falling apart. That blend of freedom and control is what makes his work feel both modern and well-trained. His colors are often bold and warm. They give the landscapes a vivid, almost celebratory mood. At the same time, his figures hold a quiet presence. He does not overwork details. Instead, he chooses a few clear marks that say enough. A glance, a fold of cloth, a slant of roof, and lets the paint do the rest. Beccari shows us how watercolor can be both expressive and exact. For younger painters, his work is a lesson. Learn to draw, respect light, and let transparent layers create depth. For viewers, his paintings offer a clear window into place and feeling, bright, honest, and grounded in skill. Prafull Sawant. Prafull Sawant paints quickly and confidently out in the open air. He goes to the street, the field, or a busy market and paints what he sees, fast. His watercolors capture the changing light and the small textures that make a place feel alive. When you look at his work, you notice mood first. Light can be soft and foggy, bright and hot, or cool and late in the day. He catches those moments with few sure marks. He does not try to draw every detail. Instead, he shows us the feeling of a scene, the way sunlight breaks across a wall, the dust in the road, the movement of people. Prafull works on location. That means he paints where things really happen. This practice forces speed and clear decision-making. He learns what matters in a scene and leaves out what does not. The result is a painting that feels honest and immediate, like a memory held in color. His brushwork is loose but controlled. Thin washes build atmosphere and stronger touches bring forward the key shapes. He balances careful drawing with flowing color so the picture reads well from a distance and rewards you with small details up close. Collectors and students admire him because his paintings are full of life and teaching. He shares his skills in workshops, showing others how to see quickly and paint with confidence. For viewers, his work is an invitation. Step into a place for a moment, feel the light, and remember the day. Amit Kapoor. Amit Kapoor paints the everyday with careful eyes and steady hands. He watches cities, railway platforms, and rooms where people live, and then he turns those ordinary places into clear, moving watercolor scenes. His work feels both real and gentle. He begins by looking closely. The angle of a roof, the curve of a window, the way sunlight hits metal on a train. He draws those details with care so the forms stay true. Then he lays soft, transparent washes that build color and light slowly. That mix of careful drawing and loose washes gives his paintings a quiet strength. Many of his images tell a small story: a lone figure on a platform, a window half open, a street with a single bike leaning by a wall. These little moments hint at a life beyond the frame. He does not fill the scene with noise. Instead, he chooses the parts that matter and lets them speak. The result is a painting you can step into, a scene that feels lived in. Light is central to his work. He watches how light falls across rails, tiles, and faces, and then he captures that feeling with subtle shifts in value and tone. The paintings read clearly from a distance, and up close you can see the careful brushwork and the choices that made the scene hold together. Amit Kapoor is part of India's contemporary watercolor scene and shows his work beyond its borders. But even without labels, his paintings reward quiet looking. Give them time, let your eyes find the small stories, the soft light, and the honest craft. In Amit Kapoor's work, ordinary life becomes quietly unforgettable. Marie-Françoise Ingels. Marie-Françoise Ingels is a Belgian watercolorist whose work sits at a very interesting crossroad. The precision of European drawing traditions and the spontaneity of watercolor as a medium. You can see in her paintings how much she values structure. The lines are often clean, the forms are carefully thought out. But once she adds watercolor, something shifts. The paint begins to breathe. There's looseness, transparency, and the kind of freedom that balances her discipline with softness. Much of her practice centers on figure studies and travel sketches. She captures people in motion, everyday faces, and fleeting places with a sensitivity that feels almost like journal entries. Her art doesn't shout, it speaks quietly. It's polished and refined, but also deeply observant. Every piece invites you to slow down and notice details you might have overlooked, the way light falls on a shoulder or how shadows create rhythm in an unfamiliar street. In a way, Marie-Françoise Ingels embodies what many love about watercolor, its ability to balance control with chance. She shows that you can be deliberate and yet still let the medium surprise you, creating paintings that are not just technically strong but also evocative, intimate, and full of atmosphere. Brittney Tough. Brittney Tough is a Canadian watercolorist who is reimagining what this medium can look like in the modern era. Her paintings are colorful, bold, and pattern-rich, often breaking away from the traditional softness people usually associate with watercolor. Instead, she uses fresh palettes, pinks, purples, electric blues, and layered tones to create energy and movement on the page. Much of her work takes everyday subjects like domestic interiors or familiar landscapes and transforms them into vibrant compositions. A chair, a patterned blanket, or even the shapes of rooftops can become the starting point for rhythmic designs filled with personality. There's always this sense of play in her work, as though she's inviting viewers to see ordinary spaces through a new and more joyful lens. Beyond her paintings, Brittney has also become an influential teacher. Through online workshops and digital platforms, she reaches students around the world who are eager to learn watercolor in a more contemporary way. She's part of a new wave of artists, making the medium more accessible, especially to younger generations who might be discovering it for the first time. Matthew Bird. Matthew Bird is a painter who works with careful skill and calm confidence. He makes still lifes and portraits that look clean, clear, and perfectly arranged. When you first see one of his watercolors, you notice the crisp edges, the strong shapes, and the quiet balance of every object. Bird begins by planning his composition. He places objects so they talk to one another, a bowl here, a glass there, a fold of cloth that leads your eye. Then he builds color slowly with many thin layers. Those layers give deep, rich tones while keeping the light and freshness that watercolor is known for. Look at his edges. Some are sharp and precise to show form. Others are soft and faded to suggest air and space. That mix of hard and soft lets him control what you look at first and what you discover later. His colors are refined, not loud but thoughtful, and they make the scene feel orderly and alive. Bird's paintings tell small, gentle stories. A table set with fruit, a silver pot catching light, a face turned just slightly. These are simple moments, but painted with skill. The scene reads clearly from a distance, and close up you can see the careful brushwork and the artist's thoughtful choices. If you are learning to paint, study his work for technique. Plan your shapes, control your edges, layer color with patience, and keep the composition strong. For viewers, his work asks one thing: look slowly. In that quiet looking, you will find the calm storytelling and technical mastery that make Matthew Bird's paintings feel complete. Sergei Kurbatov. Sergei Kurbatov is a watercolor artist who carries forward the rich Russian painting tradition, but he gives it a fresh, modern touch. He paints landscapes and city scenes, always with a strong feeling of atmosphere. When you look at his work, the first thing you notice is mood. A quiet street in the rain, a soft morning light over rooftops, or the wide calm of nature. His paintings feel like moments caught between memory and reality. He builds that mood through careful draftsmanship. The drawing is strong and clear, but the watercolor washes give it softness and depth. Kurbatov uses contemporary colors, fresh tones that feel modern. Yet the structure of his pictures shows the discipline of classical training. His edges, values, and compositions guide your eye smoothly through the scene. Nothing feels accidental. Every wash is placed with thought. What makes his painting special is balance. He mixes strong drawing with the looseness of watercolor. He brings history and tradition into today's world, so his work feels timeless but also current. Across Europe and beyond, he continues to exhibit and share this vision. For viewers, his art is an invitation to pause. Look closely at the light, the edges of buildings, the open sky. In those details, you will find both the weight of tradition and the freshness of the present moment. Jian Wu. Jian Wu is a watercolor artist who moves easily between two traditions, the flowing line of Eastern calligraphy and the solid structure of Western painting. His work often combines these approaches into one seamless language. He begins with brushwork that feels like ink, quick, delicate lines that carry rhythm and movement. Over this, he lays transparent watercolor washes. The color is soft and layered, building mood without covering the line. This mix of calligraphic gesture and luminous color creates scenes that feel both expressive and carefully composed. Many of his paintings hold narrative detail. You might see figures, landscapes, or daily life moments, but always with a touch of storytelling. The brushstrokes suggest energy, while the composition provides balance and clarity. It is this dialogue between freedom and structure, between East and West, that makes his art unique. Jian Wu also takes part in cultural exchange exhibitions, where his work stands as a bridge across traditions. He shows how watercolor is not limited by borders, but enriched by them. His paintings carry the sensitivity of one culture and the structure of another, merging them into something new. When you spend time with a Jian Wu painting, look for both movement and calm. Notice how the brush dances across the surface and how the color quietly holds the space together. In this balance, you will find a story told with grace, rhythm, and depth. Ada Florek. Ada Florek from Poland is a watercolorist who blends photorealistic skill with painterly emotion. Her works often sit between the precision of photography and the warmth of painting. Whether it's a still life or an architectural subject, Ada's pieces shine with incredible detail. Every shadow, every reflection, every texture feels alive. But what makes her work special isn't just technical mastery, it's the emotion she brings into these structured forms. A quiet corner of a building, a glass bottle catching light. In Ada's hands, these subjects carry a depth that feels personal and timeless. Her paintings invite you to stop and notice the beauty in things we might overlook. Her recognition in international competitions has only strengthened her role as a strong European voice in contemporary watercolor. Collectors, artists, and juries alike respect her ability to balance control and feeling. Ada Florek's art shows us that watercolor can be more than softness or spontaneity. It can also hold precision, strength, and soul. Lorraine Watry. Lorraine Watry is an American watercolorist whose work shows a remarkable sensitivity to light and texture. Her subjects often include birds, reflective glass, and intimate still lifes, each painted with a delicate observation that captures both detail and atmosphere. What makes her paintings stand out is the way she builds luminous layers of wash. Instead of rushing to finish, she allows light to grow gradually across the paper, creating depth and brilliance that feels almost alive. Her avian studies, in particular, reveal not just the physical beauty of feathers and form, but also the sense of stillness and quiet that birds bring into a scene. And with reflective glass, she challenges herself to capture transparency, distortion, and sparkle, a true test of watercolor mastery. Mary Schumaker. Mary Schumaker is an American watercolorist whose work is rooted deeply in the landscape and pastoral tradition. Her paintings are often windows into calm, familiar places. What makes her work special is the sense of comfort it carries. When you look at her watercolors, you're not just seeing a landscape. You're stepping into a space that feels meditative, almost like a personal retreat. She uses soft washes, layered greens and blues, and subtle tonal shifts to create atmospheres that seem to breathe with stillness. Her approach is less about dramatic spectacle and more about slowing down. The details are handled with care, but it's the mood that matters most, a balance of light, texture, and openness that invites you to linger. Roberto Mamani. Roberto Mamani is one of Bolivia's most recognized artists, known for paintings that glow with color and cultural meaning. In recent years, he has brought that same bold vision into watercolor, using the medium to continue his storytelling in a fresh way. His work is rooted in indigenous Andean aesthetics. That means his paintings often use strong geometric patterns, radiant colors, and symbols drawn from the natural world: mountains, birds, suns, and people shown in harmony with the land. Even in watercolor, these forms stay powerful, almost icon-like, but the washes of color give them new light and softness. Mamani's palette is unmistakable: deep blues, fiery reds, bright yellows, and greens that celebrate life. Instead of painting shadows in gray, he fills them with color, making every part of the painting feel alive. The result is art that celebrates culture and identity, while also speaking to universal ideas of community and nature. By adapting his vision into watercolor, he shows that the medium is not only for quiet realism, but also for vibrant storytelling. His work bridges tradition and contemporary art, placing indigenous visual language in today's global context. When you look at one of his watercolors, let the patterns guide you. Notice how shapes connect, how colors shine against each other, and how every symbol carries both beauty and history. In Mamani's hands, watercolor becomes a tool for joy, memory, and cultural pride. David Stickel. David Stocke is a watercolor artist who uses the medium in a fresh, experimental way. Rather than aiming for perfect photorealism, he leans into mood, texture, and story. His paintings often show figures and narrative scenes, but always with a contemporary twist. He builds layers of watercolor that suggest more than they describe. Soft washes, broken edges, and shifting tones create atmosphere, letting the viewer feel a place or moment rather than just see it. Sometimes the details are sharp, other times they dissolve into texture. This balance between clarity and looseness gives his work a sense of movement and life. Stocke's art often carries a story. A figure might stand in a doorway, a glance might suggest emotion, or the setting itself might hint at something deeper. He uses watercolor to weave those quiet stories, letting color and mark-making do the talking. He shows his work in galleries that value experimentation, spaces that welcome artists who push traditional media into new directions. By blending storytelling with painterly exploration, Stocke proves that watercolor can be both expressive and contemporary, not only precise and realistic. Michał Jasiewicz. Michał Jasiewicz is an American watercolorist who paints with a lyrical touch. His work often shows landscapes and everyday scenes, but what stands out most is the atmosphere, soft gradients of color and washes that feel effortless yet deeply emotional. He uses watercolor in a simple but powerful way. Instead of filling the page with detail, he relies on broad washes and gentle shifts in tone to set the mood. A field at sunset, a quiet street, or distant hills can all feel alive through the glow of his transparent layers. That simplicity is his strength. He shows how less can often say more. Jasiewicz is also a teacher. Through workshops and demonstrations, he shares how artists can use watercolor to express feeling rather than just describe form. He focuses on the essentials: light, value, and mood. His message is clear. When you trust the wash and let watercolor breathe, you can create resonance that speaks directly to the heart. When you look at a Michał Jasiewicz painting, you may not notice every tiny detail. Instead, you'll feel the air, the light, and the calmness of the moment. His work reminds us that watercolor is not just a technical skill, but a way to capture the poetry of place and time. Gwynn Di Pilla. Gwynn Di Pilla is one of those artists who bridges two worlds, the practice of making art and the calling of teaching it. Based in the United States, she balances her own watercolor journey with her role as an educator, and the result is a career that is as much about sharing knowledge as it is about creating beauty. Her watercolors often focus on landscapes and architectural studies. She has a way of making familiar places feel both clear and warm. Her brushwork captures structure with precision, yet she always softens it with an inviting, human touch. When she paints a building, it's never just stone and wood. It feels like a place with memory. And when she paints a landscape, it's more than trees and fields. It becomes an atmosphere you can almost walk into. What makes her especially important in today's watercolor scene is her commitment to education. Gwynn teaches workshops and classes across the country, passing on the techniques of watercolor layering, perspective, and composition to new generations of painters. She makes an often intimidating medium approachable, showing that watercolor isn't only for experts. It can be picked up by anyone willing to try. Karen Richardson. When you look at Karen Richardson's paintings, it feels like stepping into the quiet vastness of the Canadian North. Her work isn't just about landscapes. It's about atmosphere, presence, and the unshakable character of the natural world. Karen is known for her reverent attention to light and geological form. Every rock face, every stretch of water, every northern horizon in her paintings feels studied, but not in a stiff or mechanical way. Instead, she captures them with a softness that brings you right into the scene, almost like you're standing there with her, breathing in that cold, fresh air. What makes Karen's art stand out is this balance between the wide and the immediate. She can show you the grandeur of an expansive sky, but at the same time she pulls you into the small details, the cracks in stone, the glimmers of light on still water, the shifting colors of a sunset. There's both scale and intimacy in her work. Beyond her painting, Karen has become a guide for other artists who want to learn from her technique. Alisa Shea. Alisa Shea is an artist whose work feels like a collection of memories, each captured in delicate washes of watercolor. Instead of grand, oversized canvases, Alisa leans into the quiet power of small, intimate studies. These works often draw from her travels, with subjects that might seem ordinary at first glance. Her watercolors are not about overwhelming the viewer, but about pulling them closer, inviting us to linger, almost like leafing through a personal travel journal. Every brushstroke feels intentional, with light touches that suggest rather than dictate, allowing space for the imagination to wander. Beyond her own studio practice, Alisa Shea has become a valuable presence in her community. She shares her knowledge openly through gallery showings, workshops, and live demonstrations, making watercolor accessible to those who might find the medium intimidating. Her teaching style reflects her own artistic approach, gentle, approachable, and deeply attentive to detail. What stands out in Alisa's work is its emotional resonance. She doesn't just record places she's visited, she conveys how those places felt. The stillness of an early morning, the fleeting warmth of sunlight on a building, or the quiet solitude of an overlooked corner. Mike Nichols Daw. Mike Nichols is an American watercolor artist who has dedicated much of his practice to portraits and figure studies. His focus is on people, their faces, their gestures, and the subtle ways emotion shows through the body. What makes his work stand out is the care he gives to skin tones and the balance of his compositions. He doesn't just paint a figure, he creates an atmosphere where the person feels real and present. His watercolors carry a softness, but also a precision that shows his deep observation of human life. Beyond painting, Nichols is also a teacher and an active voice in the watercolor community in the United States. Through exhibitions and classes, he helps keep the conversation around the medium alive, passing down his knowledge and encouraging others to explore water media. His art shows that watercolor is not only for landscapes or still life, it can also capture the complexity and sensitivity of human beings. That's the contribution Nichols continues to make, keeping portraiture central in watercolor and showing how powerful the medium can be when used with patience and understanding. Dongfeng Li is a Chinese watercolorist who blends tradition with the present. His paintings often draw from the long history of Chinese ink painting, while also embracing the freshness and luminosity of modern watercolor. He is especially known for his figure work and narrative scenes, where every brushstroke feels alive with both discipline and spontaneity. In his style, you see the influence of calligraphy, marks that are quick, fluid, and expressive, balanced by layers of delicate pigment that create softness and depth. This combination gives his work a cross-cultural voice, rooted in heritage but also open to contemporary expression. As a professor, Dongfeng Li has passed on these ideas to a new generation of painters, encouraging them to see watercolor not only as a medium of technique, but also as a bridge between cultures. His work is both a personal practice and a teaching legacy. Richard Estrin. Richard Estrin is an American watercolorist who has built his reputation on intimacy, detail, and a remarkable sensitivity to light. Where some artists chase drama on a large scale, Estrin focuses on the quiet moments, the stillness of a tabletop, the reflection of a glass, or the way a single object can hold its own quiet dignity. His still lifes are never just arrangements of objects, they are studies of presence. Estrin has a way of observing the world so closely that even the most ordinary subjects, a bowl of fruit, a cup, a folded cloth, seem to carry weight and meaning. Through watercolor, he turns them into scenes that feel both familiar and new, almost like rediscovering the beauty of something you might have walked past 1,000 times without noticing. One of his strongest abilities is how he handles light. Watercolor, with all its translucency and unpredictability, becomes a perfect partner in his hands. It allows him to capture not just the look of an object, but the way it feels in space, the atmosphere around it. Eric Heitman. Eric Heitman is an American watercolorist whose work stands out for its clarity and bold storytelling. Unlike some watercolor artists who let the paint flow in loose, unpredictable ways, Heitman takes a more structured approach. His paintings are known for strong design, confident edges, and compositions that feel like they're telling a story. Every brushstroke has purpose. Heitman moves between different worlds in his career. He creates pieces for galleries where the focus is on fine art and originality. He also takes on editorial commissions where the goal is to communicate ideas clearly for magazines, books, or clients. On top of that, he teaches, passing down his skills to new artists who want to learn how to use watercolor in a modern, fresh way. This balance between fine art, illustration, and teaching keeps his work connected to contemporary visual culture. In a time when so much art is digital, Heitmann proves that watercolor, one of the oldest and most delicate mediums, can still feel powerful and relevant. His work doesn't just sit on paper, it feels alive, like it belongs in today's visual conversations. What makes Heitmann's paintings engaging is his ability to merge design with feeling. His edges are clean, his colors are bold, but within that precision, there's warmth and narrative. Viewers often feel drawn into the scene as if each painting has something to say beyond what's on the surface. Curtis Whitwam. Curtis Whitwam is an American watercolorist who has built his practice around the landscape. He's best known for his plein air work, paintings created on site in the moment surrounded by nature. This method brings a kind of freshness to his art, a sense of immediacy that you can feel in the way his brush captures shifting light, rolling skies, or the fleeting reflections on water. What makes Whitwam's paintings stand out is his use of color. His palette is bright and alive, yet never forced. He lets the transparency of watercolor guide the mood of each piece, sometimes leaning into bold, saturated tones, and other times allowing subtle, gentle washes to carry the scene. This balance gives his work a natural rhythm, almost as if you're seeing the land breathe. But Whitwam doesn't stop at quick plein air sketches. Many of his works are later expanded into larger gallery-scale paintings, while still keeping the energy and looseness of those first outdoor studies. That ability to scale up without losing intimacy is a big part of what defines his style. At its core, Whitwam's practice is about observation, being present in the landscape, tuning into its details, and translating that sensory experience into paint. His art isn't just about recording what he sees, but about sharing the joy of looking, the act of slowing down and truly noticing the world around us. Through this, Curtis Whitwam has carved out a space where watercolor feels both timeless and current, reminding us of the beauty that lies in direct engagement with the natural world. Carrie Waller. Carrie Waller is an American watercolor artist who has built a reputation for transforming everyday life into scenes of quiet beauty. Where some artists chase spectacle, Carrie looks closer at the ordinary details that surround us. A dining table with a play of light, a collection of glass jars, or a glimpse of daily routine, these are the subjects she turns into luminous works of art. Her process is rooted in transparency. Instead of heavy layering, Carrie relies on the natural flow of watercolor, clear washes, vibrant transitions, and just enough detail to let the viewer fill in the rest. This makes her work intimate, almost conversational, as though each painting is speaking directly to you. Composition plays a key role in her approach. She arranges her subjects with strong balance and rhythm, allowing light to guide the eye through the painting. The result is a harmony between realism and atmosphere, where emotion is suggested rather than loudly declared. Carrie's paintings remind us why watercolor is such a human medium. Its softness, its transparency, its ability to capture fleeting light. All of these qualities echo the way we experience life itself, moment by moment, fragile yet profound. Through her art, Carrie shows that even the most ordinary scenes hold meaning if we only take the time to look. Jackie Dorsey. Jackie Dorsey is a painter who brings people to life through watercolor in a way that feels both vibrant and deeply personal. While many artists turn to watercolor for landscapes or still lifes, Jackie has carved out a space for herself in portraiture and figurative painting. Her work is marked by confidence in color and brushwork, qualities that make her paintings stand out immediately. When you look at her portraits, you can see that she's not only trying to capture how someone looks, but also who they are. Her subjects often seem mid-thought, mid-laugh, or in a quiet, reflective moment, which makes them feel alive on the paper. That is the power of her narrative style. She uses color boldly, sometimes pushing beyond realism, yet always in a way that communicates emotion. Jackie exhibits her work both regionally and nationally, building a strong presence in the watercolor community. What makes her important in today's conversation about water media is her insistence that watercolor isn't limited to soft or traditional treatments. In her hands, it becomes expressive, direct, and powerful enough to tell full stories. Bev Jozwiak. Bev Jozwiak is an American watercolor artist whose work captures the quiet beauty of everyday subjects. While many artists reach for grand gestures or dramatic themes, Bev finds her voice in the subtlety of still lifes and the intimacy of floral arrangements. Her paintings often feature delicate blossoms, simple objects, and quiet corners of life that most people might overlook, but under her brush, they take on new life. What makes her work stand out is her dedication to transparency. Layer after layer of watercolor wash builds her images with patience and care, allowing light to pass through the pigment and giving her paintings a luminous quality. This technique requires time, precision, and restraint, qualities that reveal her respect for the medium. When you look at one of her floral paintings, for example, you can feel both the fragility and resilience of the subject. The petals appear soft, almost weightless, while the underlying structure of the flower is grounded and strong. This balance between delicacy and permanence is part of what makes her art resonate so deeply. Michał Jasiewicz. Michał Jasiewicz is a Polish watercolor painter and a dedicated workshop instructor whose art carries both structure and atmosphere. When you look at his work, you immediately notice how he balances architectural hints with loose, expressive washes. Rather than focusing on rigid detail, he allows watercolor to do what it does best: flow, blur, and suggest. For Jasiewicz, watercolor is more than just a medium. It's his primary way of translating a place into a mood. A city street becomes not just buildings and windows, but an impression of light, sound, and even weather. His plein air studies show this beautifully, capturing the fleeting qualities of a moment outdoors with freshness and immediacy. Beyond painting, he's deeply involved in teaching, sharing these methods with students across workshops. He emphasizes atmosphere over precision, encouraging painters to trust the water and embrace looseness. This makes his teaching style as engaging as his paintings themselves, giving watercolorists a sense of freedom and confidence. Through both his art and instruction, Michał Jasiewicz demonstrates how watercolor can be both structured and fluid, a tool for storytelling that's as much about feeling as it is about form. Andrew Wyeth. Andrew Wyeth is one of the most recognized names in American realism, and while many people know him for his tempera paintings like Christina's World, watercolor was actually central to his career. From a young age, Wyeth embraced watercolor because of its speed and directness. He used it almost like a diary, capturing the landscapes, buildings, and people around his home in Pennsylvania and Maine. His watercolors, often made quickly on site, feel raw and alive compared to the more painstaking tempera works. They reveal his fascination with weathered barns, empty fields, and solitary figures, always painted with a restrained palette that carries a quiet, emotional weight. In many ways, watercolor allowed Wyeth to experiment freely, to chase fleeting light and shifting moods without overthinking. These works also shaped how later artists approached watercolor, not as a light, decorative medium, but as something capable of depth, seriousness, and lasting power. Even today, when you look at his watercolor studies, you sense a direct connection between the artist's eye and hand, intimate, immediate, and timeless. Lars Lerin. Lars Lerin from Sweden is often described as one of the greatest watercolorists alive today. What makes his work stand out is how he takes watercolor, a medium many people think of as light or delicate, and transforms it into something monumental and full of atmosphere. His paintings of Nordic landscapes, quiet towns, and stark interiors carry a moody stillness, almost like the weight of a long Scandinavian winter on paper. Instead of neat little sketches, Lerin works on large sheets, sometimes filling the surface with broad gestural washes of color. The translucent quality of watercolor becomes his tool for evoking mist, snowfall, dim northern light, and the reflective surfaces of water and glass. There's always a sense of weather and memory in his paintings, as if he's recording not just how a place looks, but how it feels to stand there, cold, quiet, and alive with subtle shifts of light. For Lerin, watercolor is almost like a diary. Each work feels personal, like an entry written in color rather than words. And yet the scale and power of these pieces give them a universal resonance, showing us how atmosphere itself can become the subject of painting. Viktoria Prischedko. Viktoria Prischedko is a contemporary European watercolorist and teacher who has built a reputation for her luminous, expressive style. What draws people to her work is the way she balances clarity of color with loose, confident brushwork. She doesn't overwork her paintings. Instead, she lets the freshness of watercolor shine through, giving her pieces a sense of lightness and immediacy. Her subjects often range from cityscapes to figures, but no matter the theme, what defines her art is that interplay between precision and freedom. She has a remarkable ability to simplify complex scenes, using just a few bold strokes and splashes of bright pigment to suggest form and atmosphere. That makes her paintings both accessible and sophisticated, easy for the eye to enjoy, yet technically impressive. Beyond her studio practice, Prischedko is also a dedicated teacher. She shares her knowledge widely through online demonstrations and in-person workshops, where she inspires students to embrace looseness, trust their instincts, and celebrate the natural flow of watercolor. This combination of artistry and education has made her a highly respected figure in today's watercolor community, with fans and learners across the world. Hazel Soan. Hazel Soan is a British painter and one of the world's best-known watercolor teachers. Her style is instantly recognizable, bold, colorful, and filled with light. She is famous for her wet-into-wet approach, laying strong pigment onto damp paper to create fluid blends and luminous transitions. It's a way of working that captures atmosphere and energy, whether she's painting wildlife, landscapes, or figures in motion. Over the years, Hazel has built a huge global following, not just through her paintings, but through her teaching. She has written numerous books on watercolor technique and produced a wide range of instructional videos. Her lessons emphasize clarity, simplicity, and the importance of painting with confidence rather than hesitation. Students around the world have learned from her how to see light, how to make bold marks, and how to keep watercolors fresh instead of overworked. What also makes Hazel stand out is her ability to bridge fine art and teaching. Many great painters struggle to explain their process, but Hazel has a gift for communication. She breaks down the complexity of watercolor into simple, practical steps while still showing the joy and freedom behind the brush. This balance has made her one of the most influential watercolor voices of her generation. Misolbu. Misolbu is a watercolor artist from Korea who has built a strong presence online, especially through YouTube and Instagram. What makes Misolbu stand out is the way they merge traditional East Asian brush techniques with contemporary watercolor portraiture. Their works often feature delicate layers, detailed washes, and a softness that draws viewers into the subject's expression. But beyond the paintings themselves, Misolbu is very much part of the digital watercolor community. They share process videos, step-by-step demonstrations, and behind-the-scenes clips that not only show the final results, but also the journey of getting there. For many aspiring watercolorists around the world, Misolbu's channel is like an open classroom where you can study how subtle shifts of water and pigment bring portraits to life. By combining cultural brush traditions, modern storytelling, and a social media presence, Misolbu has become more than just a painter. They're a bridge between tradition and today's online art culture. Nita Engle. Nita Engle was an American watercolorist who made a lasting mark on the medium, especially through her bold experimental approaches to painting landscapes. She often encouraged artists to let the paint do the work, a phrase that summed up her philosophy of embracing the natural flow of watercolor instead of fighting against it. Rather than relying only on control, she pushed for spontaneity, spraying, pouring, and splattering paint to create atmospheric skies, forests, and oceans that felt alive with movement. Beyond her own work, Engle was also a teacher at heart. She wrote instructional books and appeared in documentary features, leaving behind resources that continue to inspire new generations. Her legacy is not just in the paintings she created, but in the methods she shared, showing countless students that watercolor could be as bold, experimental, and expressive as any other medium. Oliver Pyle. Oliver Pyle, often called Ollie, is a British watercolorist known for his luminous landscapes that capture the beauty of the UK countryside. His practice reflects the long and rich tradition of British watercolor painting, but with a modern sensibility rooted in today's plein air movement. He often works directly in nature, creating small studies outdoors that later inform larger, more developed works in the studio. Pyle's paintings stand out for their clarity of light and strong sense of structure. Whether it's a quiet woodland path, a sunlit coastal view, or the rolling hills of the English countryside, his compositions balance detail with atmosphere. He places a great emphasis on observation, encouraging other artists to slow down, look closely, and respond to the landscape in front of them. Cindy Barron. Cindy Barron is an American artist whose landscapes carry a sense of grandeur and drama. Working in both watercolor and oil, she is known for her sweeping views of western mountain ranges and her evocative coastal scenes. What makes her approach striking is how she uses watercolor, a medium often associated with small, delicate studies, to tackle vast and powerful subjects. Her process involves building transparent washes, one layer at a time, to achieve incredible depth and atmosphere. This gives her mountain ranges a sense of scale and her coastlines a feeling of movement and light. She pushes watercolor beyond its stereotype of fragility, showing that it can handle the boldness of stormy skies, crashing waves, and rugged peaks. At the same time, Cindy's oil paintings share a similar strength, but with a softer interplay of light and shadow. Laure Pemberton. Laure Pemberton is an illustrator whose work radiates warmth and nostalgia. She works primarily in gouache, but her process carries a strong watercolor influence. The result is a style that feels soft, handmade, and deeply inviting. Her imagery often centers on cozy, folk-inspired scenes, cabins in the woods, families gathered together, children playing, or quiet moments that capture the simplicity of daily life. Every painting feels like a window into a small, timeless world, full of comfort and storytelling. Pemberton's art bridges the gap between fine art and design. Her prints and originals are cherished not only by collectors but also by designers who admire the way her colors, textures, and compositions translate into modern illustration. She shows us how gouache and watercolor overlap beautifully in contemporary practice, proving these traditional mediums can create art that feels both familiar and fresh. Sabina Fenn. Sabina Fenn is a Toronto-based illustrator and painter whose work feels instantly stylish and inviting. She combines watercolor and gouache to create warm, lifestyle-inspired images that carry a distinct elegance. Her focus often leans toward fashion, interiors, and everyday moments, but always through a lens that emphasizes beauty and comfort. There's a softness to her colors, a lightness in her brushwork, and a design sensibility that makes her art easy to connect with. What makes Sabina's practice stand out is how successfully she bridges fine art with the commercial world. Her paintings appear not just as prints for collectors, but also on home decor items, editorial spreads, and product collaborations. It's a clear example of how watercolor can extend far beyond traditional gallery walls and enter into the rhythm of daily life. Through her work, Sabina Fenn demonstrates that watercolor and gouache remain powerful tools for visual storytelling, especially when paired with the aesthetics of contemporary design and fashion. And that wraps up our journey through these incredible watercolor and gouache artists, each one leaving their mark on the art world in their own special way. I hope you discovered someone new to admire, or maybe found fresh inspiration for your own creative path. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with a friend who loves art, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Until then, keep creating, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next video.